Hey everybody, Alex here, and welcome to another video. If you just saw the pickup video, yes, I'm filming this one right after because I got like half an hour to kill. So I wanted to do a little bit something about the new way. How pretentious does that sound? The new strategy, the new way I'm going to play games this year. As I mentioned in the games I finished video and that little update thing, I finished a lot of games this year. Admittedly, everybody else who's done a video as such, SNES Mapper did, as well as a bunch of you guys, and even like BioPhoenix did a three-part or two-part series of how many games he finished. And, you know, I thought I beat over 50, and that was a lot. A lot of people beat over 50 games. And that makes me feel a little bit better because I do realize it wasn't just the fact that I had some extra time on my hands. Some people just didn't have to commute to work. And I am finding more time to play games because I physically don't have to go to work. I just have to come in this room. And with that being said, you know, I do not want to finish that many games again this year. Because while I'm rotating things in and out, like, you know, your Puyo Puyo Tetrises and your platformers and, you know, your 6-hour Metroid style games or your 6-hour Castlevania style games or your visual novel on occasion, that sort of thing. The RPGs are just continuing to sit and sit and sit. And even though I'm able to intermingle an RPG or two, out of 50 games, I think I maybe did 6 RPGs. Maybe 5. That's still a lot. But with those other 6, 7, 5, 6, 7, 2, 4, 5, whatever, I could have done another 1 or 2 at least, considering how many have just been sitting in my backlog perpetually. So, to start off this year, I played Battle Chasers Night War on the Nintendo Switch, and I've had this game since pretty much when it came out. And if you're unfamiliar, it's done by the artist who did Night War, the Image Comics series from, I think it was 98. And I've never read it, but I enjoyed the characters so much and the artwork, because this is the dude, I think it's Joe Maduria, I think is how you say his name. He did artwork for, I believe, WoW. I think he used to do the Hammerfall cover art, if you're familiar with that band. But he mostly did all the artwork for Darksiders, and I absolutely love it. It has a super comic book style to it, very clean, kind of cartoony, but at the same time, everything, like in terms of muscle definition, it's just very larger than life, let's say. So I enjoy the characters and the characters of the story enough where I actually bought the anthology, which is the collected or the omnibus actually of the whole run on Comixology, and I haven't read it yet, but so I'm still trying to finish Battle Angel Alita. I have one more book to go, and then I'm finished. Which is, admittedly, is really good. It's just as long. So, with all that being said, Battle Chasers Night War was a Kickstarter game, and it kind of shows it because it kind of intermingles it in places. Like, there's graveyards where it's like you can tell it's Kickstarter backers. But the game itself really, it gives you like a comic book style plot, which is fine, makes sense. But then the gameplay is like a mixture of dungeon crawling, World of Warcraft, Diablo, and turn-based JRPG. It's a very strange mix. And it strangely works until you get to the roguelike bit, which seems shoved in there. You die, you lose a certain amount of gold because you gotta get back to town, and then that's it. Like, I don't see where the hindrance is. But there's also a huge crafting mechanic in there too, and you'll spend a lot of your time just grinding and grinding and grinding because the leveling up is stupid slow. The good news is the level cap, I think, if I remember, was like 30. And the bosses and the battles are really slow and methodical. Like, it kind of has like that MMO style sort of thing where it's not like you're comboing off of each other, but you're building upon each other. So, case in point, one character is able to, when he attacks, he gets an attack boost. And then he has another ability where when he uses it, it does magic damage. But upon using it, it decreases his attack, but it does a lot more damage because he has the damage boost. And then you kind of have like an MMO sort of like, you know, ping pong effect. Another character does bleed damage, and if something is bleeding, he can absorb HP, etc., etc. If you've played an MMO, you're probably familiar with the way rogues and warriors tend to play, like in a game like WoW or something like that. And that's how this game goes. And the dungeons are kind of cool because I think they're procedurally generated, which really just means, you know, box A into box B to box C, D, and then mix that all up. So the dungeons are kind of like long and drawn out and boring, but they do, again, they have like a MMO raid sort of feel to them. Everything is themed. The enemies are themed. There's subquests in there. It's actually kind of cool. And overall, while I did enjoy it, it also just felt like, okay, they're just borrowing ideas from a bunch of other games that did this, I'll be honest, a little bit better. But if you're into the comic from the 90s, or you find a bunch of these different mechanics endearing, you'll definitely find something good in this. My biggest gripe on the game is the last boss. If you're not at the level cap, or at least one level below, which again isn't that high, but because of the grinding, I think you get like 50 XP a battle, depending on what you fight. But you need, I don't remember, but the game does have the difficulty spikes it goes from like 1 to 3 to 5 to 10 to 50. And that's at the last boss, because you will be one-shotted nonstop. And then the second you hit 30, I think it's 30 or 29, all of a sudden it's just she falls over. Oh shit, oh well, whatever. They fall over. And then it just ends. And there's obviously going to be a sequel. But the reason why it sounds like I'm harping on it because there was a lot of negative in there, but I still enjoyed it. I just wish it was better. But it's also been sitting in my backlog for so long. And the game reviewed very well. A lot of people really enjoyed it. And I feel like if I played it when it came out, I would have been a lot more accepting, because it came out in like, I think 2017, when all these quality of life things weren't a thing yet, or they were just coming out. Like the idea of having a turbo mode in like a Final Fantasy 12 was like revolutionary at the time. Now it's like, where's the turbo? Like what do you mean there's no turbo mode in this archaic RPG? Like, you know, this game has no turbo. You literally have to watch every single animation, and the animations are really good. But I'll be honest, it does reach a point where you're kind of like, oh my god, I've literally spent 30 hours of this game when it could have been 15 if I didn't have to watch every single animation. And the load times are a little long at points too. Coming off of that, I went right into Dragon Quest VI, Realms of Revelation. You cannot get more JRPG than that. This is probably one of the stranger Dragon Quest games I've played, because the plot literally ends at the halfway point. It literally just stops. And you have no idea what to do, literally, product of the time. And you kind of just wander around solving people's problems until you eventually stumble upon the ending. Pretty much in the demon realm, which is, you know, that's how these things go. But the game itself is kind of cool because it borrows the same class system that was used in Dragon Quest III. The main character, nameless hero, who you name yourself, I can't really go into detail because it is a big story spoiler, but the reason why it's called the Realms of Revelation is because you're basically going between different dimensions. And the way they do it is actually really cool. The only thing I had problems with, I could never tell which dimension I was in unless I was towards the end of the game, because there's something extremely obvious to tell you that you're in this not real place. So, but that part of it, that storyline is so interesting to me because I'd never seen that done before. But then it just ends. Like, it kind of just like, it doesn't resolve itself either. It just like, at one point it's like, well, okay, did all that. Oh, yeah, there's still game. And you just go from there. A lot of grinding, but the game is very snappy, very quick. Find a good spot, just grind out jobs, because the job system in this game, I think it, much like 3, not so much like Final Fantasy 5, it's determined by battles. So, for instance, if you want to level up Priest, you have to fight 18 battles with experience as a priest. You get the next rank. Then you have to fight like 50, etc., etc. And I think to get like max rank in priest, I think it's 149 battles, not total, like from that. So you will spend a majority of this 25-ish, 30, sometimes 40 hours just grinding. Because I'll be honest with you, if you do not have the hero as the hero class at the end, it is hard. It is fucking hard. And it's not even, and I was over level because I didn't realize that the class system was going to work the way it did because I wasn't thinking. And the second the game started, I said, okay, I'm going to get to the first area level 10. And I literally spent, I think, 3 hours just grinding out. And I was just one-shotting enemies left and right. And then I get to the last boss and I'm still over leveled. But because my stats weren't where they needed to be based on having a second or third tier class job, it was a struggle. And it was a very annoying struggle because I'm like, man, I got all this down. Like, it was just like, I don't know. But I did eventually have to look up a walkthrough because I'll be honest, I was totally fucking lost. And I've played obtuse shit before, but this was really obtuse. True story. To get to this, also, it's in almost every DQ game. To get to this floating fucking castle, I'll leave it at that, you need to solve a puzzle. And with that puzzle, I just did not have the patience to go find the items I wanted, you needed to get the answer. So I figured, let me look up the answer. So I look it up, go, do the puzzle. It accepts it. And then it says, no, we can't let you pass because you don't have the legendary armor, the legendary sword, the legendary shield, or the legendary helmet. Like, what the fuck? All of a sudden the legendary items are required? I had no idea. I didn't even know where in the game it told you about them. I literally never bumped into anything pertaining to it. So then I had to go back in a walkthrough, had to backtrack through at least 15 or 20% of the game to find everything, to go back there, to ascend into this floating castle, to fight a wacky boss, to leave that, to go, etc., 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 etc. So all of this, it sounds like I'm complaining because I am, but this is what makes Dragon Quest so good. Because Dragon Quest, each game is in and of itself a different thing, except for, you know, the original trilogy, and then this is part of the Zenithian trilogy. But because they're their own exclusive thing, each story can take a different direction. You know, the first game is like your typical hero save the day. Second game, typical hero save the day. Third game, you know, all of a sudden we have this huge thing with the underworld. Fourth game, we have, you know, different people from different walks of life coming together to save the world. Fifth game, which is still my favorite, you literally have a kid growing up. This one, you have dimensional travel. 7, you have time travel. 8, you walk around with Yoda and you fight Piccolo. 9, I've never played, but apparently you fell from heaven. 10 is an MMO. And 11 is just a celebration of all this ridiculousness. And that's the thing I want to point out too. I knew Dragon Quest XI was like a celebration of all the previous games. There are so many story beats in 11 that come right out of 6. And it made that so much cooler for me while playing 6. Because I was like, oh, this is where this came from. And it's so great because it can take all these different fantasy things and just make them all make sense. Especially in 6, based on the nature of it. It is really, really cool. If you've never played it before, I definitely recommend it. Again, despite my bitching and moaning, there is a lot of good in this game, especially if you're a Dragon Quest fan. The DS version is not cheap. Apparently, I bought it day one years ago. Again, which is why I'm like, I have to get through this shit. And apparently it's like $150 used. And do I necessarily think that's worth it? I truthfully, and this may be sacrilegious, get it on your fucking phone. That is way too much money for what this is. If it was $80, I'd say sure. I know if you guys watch Sick Cooper, I think he still has one on his website. Check him out. Not a shameless plug, actually. I watch his daily vlog, and I tend to keep an eye out. But yeah, it's just from a collector's perspective. This is why I say there's not so much going to be any. I foresee any retro coming on here anymore, just because it's too much. Now, coming off of this game, I am now playing Trails of Cold Steel 2. approximately 1 year and 3 months since I played Cold Steel 1. And I'd waited, and now Cold Steel 4 is out, and the quadrology is over. And I'm playing Cold Steel 2. I'm about 15 hours in already. And I'm really enjoying it. I got back my girls. I got back Fee. I got back Laura. I got Reen. Sharon is fucking OP. I don't give... She's wacky. But here's the thing. The story with Cold Steel is just way too fucking deep. There is too much going on with this political intrigue. I am literally sitting there, even with the synopsis, I am literally sitting here like this, popping Advil, getting a headache because I can't remember everything that went on in the first game. Like, I remember the parts with Class 7, but the over arc with like Duke Alberea and everybody else, it's like I can't remember all of it. Now, the game does a really good job at cross-referencing, you know, being like, oh, yeah, because of, and then info drop, and then you continue on. But I'm also coming off of 1 year and 3 months, so even if there are info drops, I'm just not picking it all up. So, here's the challenge for me this year. I am going to play and finish Cold Steel 2, Cold Steel 3, and Cold Steel 4 before the end of the year. That is a lot of fucking game, okay? And I am probably stupid for even thinking about this, but there was just too much going on where I can't give myself a break like that again. That is just way too much. That being said, I don't think I have the tolerance or the patience or the endurance to go from 2 to 3 to 4. So I'm probably going to put a game or two in between each, but I'm going to make sure that a Cold Steel game follows that so I can at least catch up with that series. The Atelier games, forget it. I will be perpetually behind, but the good news is they're standalones in a similar universe depending on the trilogy, so I can get away with it. But this is just way too much. And I had the same problem with Trails in the Sky. First game I absolutely loved. Second game, after they got through all the info dumps and I got to the end, I was kind of like, okay. But then the third game, I honestly just didn't care for it. So with this, I like the characters enough where I'm like, I definitely want to finish the series this year. What I'm going to play in between, I would love to say it's going to be another RPG. But I have a feeling something like, you know, as I mentioned in the pickup video, something like Control or something that may be sitting in the backlog from the action perspective, like a God Hand or something like that. That may be good to at least cut the RPG monotony. But here's the thing with Cold Steel 2. This was originally released on the Vita and the PS3, and I feel it. I didn't feel it with Cold Steel 1. I don't know, maybe it's the porting. I have no idea. But I said this before, and because I looked up the old video I did where I talked about the original Cold Steel, I'm going to say it again. How the fuck did you people play this game without turbo mode? My God, does it move slow. Like, unless everybody's doing this the whole time, I think the game is breaking. But the turbo mode in the Cold... I don't know if it's in 3 or 4, but the turbo mode in Cold Steel 1 and 2 is actually really good because it just speeds up the animation, but it keeps the dialogue and everything else in perfect sync. So you can have everybody staying there doing this the whole time, but they're not talking stupid fast. It's actually really cool, and it really helps with, you know, getting through the pans and everything else because they tend to be very slow. I guess just a pad at the time, I don't know. But anyway, so that's the plan for this year. In between all this, between trying to play through three Cold Steel games, I am going to try to do at least 2 visual novels that have been in the backlog. Again, you know, this stuff has just been sitting here way too long. It's not being played, and this stuff is meant to be played, so I'm going to try to get through that. Because end of the day, if I play it and I don't like it, guess what? It goes away. And then I free up space. And eventually I'll just reach the point of all killer and no filler for reals. Anyway, I've been Alex. I'll see y'all in the next one. Take it easy.